Welcome to Fluid Mask Training. We're using it in Photoshop as our plugin version, and the reason for that is sometimes what you'll notice as this image here is the background of the sky will sometimes reflect light off the tree branches, and this will give us an issue when we extract it out using traditional ways of fluid mask, cutting out where the leaves should be because it is the same color as the sky or very close to the same color. We're going to show you a different technique that works very effectively and well by doing this in Photoshop. I'm going to go into my image menu, pull down my image adjustment, go to invert, which is Apple I or Control I. In this image, you can see now it's extremely inverted the image into a negative, where the tones that may have been the same color as the background now are a darker purple, and the sky has turned black, the clouds in a little bit of a grayish tone. And you'll see why we've done this when we bring it into Fluid Mask and use our color workspace and our patch properties tool. I'm going to go into my filter menu, go to Vertex, Fluid Mask. It's going to shut down Photoshop temporarily just to save on RAM, and it's going to bring up Fluid Mask here. And what you're going to see in Fluid Mask is it rendered the image up on the very bottom here, and this is the progress bar, and what this is doing down here is finding the edges for us, and that's going to create all the blue segments and blue lines that you see on the outside of the image. That is an auto feature for us that should just pop right up. And one note, if you are used to using Fluid Mask, you can actually start working in the image before it actually is done rendering. So on the left hand side with my toolbars, you'll see I have a delete local brush, which is my second red brush down. I'm going to make one swipe on that sky background over the black because we want to take the background out and get in between the trees. So this first step, and it's not even done rendering, as soon as it's done, you'll notice the background is almost done and knocked out for us. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint around these little areas here, and on the other side as well, taking out the black background. And what we're going to do here is do our image autofill with keep. It's going to generate our keep mask, which is our green. I'm going to go down on the very bottom, turn off my object edges down here on show object edges, just so I can see the background popping through the trees a little bit, and showing me where I'm missing the edge out here, that taking it back onto the delete mask. What I want to do here though is use my patch properties tool, which is the rectangular patch here. In this patch pull down screen you actually have a poly patch and a brush patch, which will allow you to paint over an area or draw a polygon over an area. We're going to use it as a rectangle patch, and I'm just going to click and drag over the tree right to the horizon line, and when I let up, you're going to see our color workspace come up. In this color workspace, you're seeing a frequency of hue starting from your darkest colors to your left to the lightest colors on your right. By clicking and dragging, you'll notice in the background it's actually going to start to pull up in yellow here. And with those now, I can actually throw those to the paint bucket here, which correlates the mask colors. Green's our keep bucket, red's our delete bucket, blue is our blend bucket, and these are to put other paint colors back into the original. So we want to take out the background sky, so we're going to actually start up to the left first, click and drag, and you'll see a majority of that background actually comes out in yellow very quickly in between the trees. With those selected, I'm actually going to go into my delete bucket, which is my red paint bucket, and click the paint bucket. It's going to render up, and you'll see in between the trees we have little red spots taking out the background for us. Now with those out, we don't have a nice transition here, so we need a nice transition blend line. The easiest way to do that is to go back into your color workspace, and I can actually use the eyeballs in the right hand corner here, select the red eye. It's going to show me which colors I've actually deleted in my color workspace. Now with this selected, I now can tell it what other colors I want to put to my keep mask. But just to show you the detail that you can get on images, I'm going to use the resolution coarse to fine slider. By changing the coarse slider down, you're going to see it change it into bigger blocks of color. And this will work out in the beginning where I want to take out a majority of that black first. But notice by using the slider up into my fine and then making a selection, it breaks even the black down into a smaller segments of color. Now I can go into the image and hold my shift key and make a selection, and it will tell me the next color in that range. So I hold shift key and then click a selection, and you'll see there it starts to take out even more bars of color for us. But on this image, I know that my coarse slider is going to work the best right at its default settings. So once again, to finish this up, we want to throw a nice blue transition in between here, in between the red and the green mask. So I'm going to turn off my object edges again, or my actual red eye down here in the corner, and it's actually going to show me which colors I've already got selected in delete mask. I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag all these to the right, selecting a majority of the tree. You can still see we lost a few little branches. That's not an issue. We'll go ahead and address that when we're done. And the last step I'm going to do here is go down in the very bottom left corner, add blend mask automatically. And that's going to go ahead and generate our keep mask, which is going to then re-render and show us a little blue edge blend line. So I'm going to go add blend mask automatically, go ahead to my green paint bucket. It's going to render green for us and then re-render again on the bottom and show us a blue transition line, which is getting us the nice transition from transparency to the background. With that selected, I'm going to close my color workspace, and you can see that we have a few little branches up here that are left over that we didn't get. I'm going to use my blue pen, which is our blend exact tool, and I'm going to go over the tops of the trees and the branches that we've actually lost. Generally, I'll go around the whole outside, just giving it a nice little thin ring of blue blend. And there's another little spot here I'm going to leave just to show you in Photoshop how we can edit if you do get any cloudiness or background brought in that you didn't want originally. And I'm just going to finish this one up. Maybe just get a little bit of this area down here in between the trees just to make sure I got these little branches that were there. And I'm going to go ahead and create my cutout. And you're going to re-render this, and you're going to see no black in the background. Generally, working with a negative, it is a little bit difficult at first. As soon as you get used to it, it can be very useful, even with hair or other images with complex backgrounds. So try things out differently with the invert technique. But with this tree, this is pretty much done. So I'm going to go back into my Photoshop by doing a save, file, save, and apply. And it's going to bring it back into Photoshop. And this is where I can, once again, do my Apple eye or go into my adjustments, invert my image back. There's my original on a cutout. Now, the area that I was talking about getting overblend, I can actually come over to the layer menu. And over the layer menu with my hands on this little layer here, I'm going to go ahead and make a selection by holding the Apple key and click. And you'll see the marching ants actually pop up around the image. In your layer menu, on the very bottom of the layer menu, you have a black circle or black square with a white circle. This is our alpha channel. I'm going to create my alpha channel, and you can see here it brings up a black and white version. Now in my channel menu, I'm going to go down here on the very bottom and turn on my layer 0 mask, and then I'll go ahead and turn off my RGB. And what I want to show you here is, with my blending tool, I've actually overblended on purpose, just to show you this, and this will happen occasionally on your image here. If I zoom out a little bit, you're going to see I brought in some of those clouded areas, where the background was trying to distinguish it, and it really got confused, and maybe just brought back in some of that cloud that we didn't want. The easiest way to fix this is going in with my burn tool in Photoshop, and making sure my exposure is set at shadow, so I'm burning out the darker spots. My exposure set around 29%. I can go a little bit less. And what I want to do is just paint over this image. Now this allows you to go back in and edit and get rid of the spots that you don't want. In traditional ways, you used to use a black and white paintbrush to paint in areas. But to get the detail around the tree branches, it was a little bit harder and a little bit more time consuming. With this, and your exposure rate set with your burn tool down just a little bit, you're able to go in and edit out those clouded areas for you. And that looks pretty good. I think I've got one spot over here as well. So using my burn tool in Photoshop, going over the area lightly, not going too far and too crazy into it, I'm just going to go ahead and paint out those areas. Now, having your exposure set too high will take out some of the detail. So generally start out with your exposure low and go over those areas, bringing out that mask. So with our RGB turned back on, I'll go back in my layer menu and zoom out, and there is a tree extracted with the inverse technique.